All right. Got our legs back yesterday. Guys came out, started a little slow. Bryce challenged the group, went into the huddle. The boys responded. Defense, great response today. A dominant practice for the defense. Some turnovers, some beautiful hits. Guys squaring the offensive guys up, showing each other the type of physical play that they're expecting from each other, which I love. I love that it's coming from them. You know, it's Trey Merrick. You know, it's Lathan Ransom showing up. You know, Thomas Incoom had a great day today. Pat Jones had some nice rushes. I could go on and on, but it was just a lot of physical play. Trevin had a nice hit out there, and that's what we need. You know, and the offense needs to be able to be prepared for that kind of physical nature of the game. So I love the finish of the practice.
Dave, you confirmed, I saw a video where you confirmed that you do plan to play your starters.
Yes.
The first preseason game. What went behind that decision? Was that one of the things that you kind of learned from last preseason because you didn't play them last year?
Yeah, I just, kind of going through it last year. I think, we have a mix of veteran players, but it's predominantly a pretty young team, and I just can't pass up the opportunities. Like the reps in game are valuable, but I think that it goes to the night before when guys know they're going to go out there. They got to make a decision, to play football, and so it starts the night before with the prep. You start thinking about your plan, taking care of your body, making sure you get your rest. You get up, it's your nutrition plan in the morning, body readiness, kind of just like your full game day routines. Those are so valuable. We have three opportunities to do that, in this preseason. And I just really want to take advantage of that. Plus, it's a bunch of new guys playing together on defense and a couple of new guys on the offensive side. We have a little more continuity there, but I just love the thought of them going through that plan, having a first 15 type of thought process, and taking advantage of the preparation.
That includes Bryce.
Yes.
Will that be case by case for the second and third preseason game as well?
That's my plan for the first two, and then the third one we'll have to kind of decide, wait and see where we're at there in that week of practice going into it.
Dave, Nick Sorden and DJ Johnson kind of off to the side. What
Yeah.
happened with those two guys?
Yeah, Nick just has a mild hamstring. We're being smart about, happening in a special teams drill. He's been doing a great job there. And then DJ's just had a hip thing, something in his hip kind of flare up on him at the beginning of practice. So we're just going to check him out this afternoon.
You, as Vashti said, you didn't play your starters, I think the first two last year.
Yeah.
Was it just something, what changed, and did you learn something from that process?
Yeah, I think just experimenting with an approach. I'd been a part of in Seattle where we played our starters all but the last preseason game. They always got some good work in a couple series, and I just think about Pete, what he was looking for at the time was the same thing we talked about was, that mental preparation and readiness to go out there and play football, full speed football. So you think about the hours, there's a lot that goes into getting your mind right to go out there and play this game, so that as much as anything is valuable.
Dave, you mentioned that Bryce, early on in practice, refocused the team.
Yeah.
Has that been a common occurrence for Bryce this training camp, and how does that speak to his leadership?
It hasn't been necessary, really up until today, and I think as we accumulated 3 great days of practice, had a player day off, and you kind of come out and the guys are kind of oozing their way into practice, and so the challenge, and from Chuba at the end of practice was, guys, we can't afford to come out and feel our way through this thing. We have to be ready to go when that first horn blows. For 2 hours, we're working, and to kind of have those habits, and Bryce, I think, just sensed it. He hadn't had to up until this point, but I think he could sense just not enough urgency, and so he just kind of, we went through that first rack, came back out, and took 10 or 15 seconds to kind of tell the guys, let's go. It's time to go. So I love that.
It seemed like a pretty productive practice for Thomas Incoom.
Yeah.
What have you seen from him? I know you got him kind of mid-year last year.
Yeah.
What have you seen with him so far this summer?
I think Thomas just taking to the coaching points of becoming a rusher. He's very physical by nature. He helped us on special teams. He's a dynamic player there, but I think that AC Carter's been working with him. Our outside linebackers coach has been really working with him on having just a couple of tools. It's like a pitcher. You got your fastball, and there's some sort of off-speed pitch that's coming, and with Thomas with his speed, he could help us. He could be a really dynamic presence that way. And then I just love how physical he's playing the run game as well.
Dave, how do you balance in your mind? You said dominant day for defense. How do you kind of balance good for them, bad for the other guys?
Yeah, I'm just looking for the response, and it's the consistency, right? Because, especially when we get into the red zone periods, the way we score it, we give a point for a win, we give 3 points for a touchdown. So the defense doesn't like that. But what happens is, in games, you could be having a dominant day, but you give up one go ball for a touchdown, and it's a big swing in momentum, a big shift, So it's that consistency of play that we're looking for. But I thought they upheld that. I thought they continued to play the run game and challenge the run game, and then challenge the pass game, came up with some turnovers, So, and then what I've been noticing the guys are doing is the defense is getting together before every team drill. They're kind of coming together, talking, challenging each other, then they go out there and call it up again, And so it's just, I love that refocus. That's what it's going to take during games. I expect them to kind of have that chemistry to come together in between drives. Let's go out and do it again. How many times can we just do right longer? Can we finish halves? Can we finish games that way? So I love the mentality of it right now.
Coach, what's your first? You talked about really wanting this to be a player-led team. In
Yeah.
those moments, what is the balance that you're looking to strike with really allowing those guys to set the pattern?
Yeah, I think it's the job of the coaching staff to set the foundation for our schemes, for our philosophy, and for our expectations of what it looks like to play Panthers football. But then it becomes powerful when the players take that, and the locker room owns it. And they make it show up, play in and play out. That's when it becomes powerful. That's when it becomes our team, their team. And because, as you all know, at the end of the day, it's going to be those men out there on the field. The coaches are going to be standing back, sending in calls, but they're the ones that got to do it. They got to call each other. They're going to rebound from, a bad play. They got to celebrate the good plays and keep each other in tune and focused for a whole game.
Dave, how good is Robert Hunt, and what do you expect from him this year?
Robert is amazing. The size, the talent, the quickness, the flexibility. He's a really intelligent guy. And he'll be the first one to come up here and tell you there are technique things that he wants to work on, and being really specific with his hand placement, keeping his weight back. He's such a big dominant force. He can get away with kind of just mauling guys and covering them up. But if you play with technique and you have all that power and athleticism, that's when you really, take the next steps. And I just love the thought of, regardless of where our players are at, there's always more out there for you. There's always a learning curve. We're constantly growing as coaches, as players. We're constantly looking for that. So I love the fact that he's challenging himself, and Harold Goodwin is challenging him every day just on the little techniques, and he's very coachable, very receptive to that.
Coach, what's your first impression on that digital down and distance?
I think it could be really valuable. I think for me as the head coach, I think just there are those close, was it a first down or not, type of situations that come up where all of a sudden I got to be ready for, it was a first down. What's the play call there? It wasn't, potentially a fourth and inches, potentially a third and inches or whatever. So I think that getting that information quickly does help the flow of the game.
Kind of quiet day, seemingly, for T-Mac. You noticed, I know you talked about his response a couple days ago. How do you think he looked today?
I thought he looked great. I thought there was some communication stuff I'm sure he and Bryce are going to work through when we get to film. I can't tell you exactly what happened on some of those, but a couple of near misses, something that they've been working on all camp, so something for them to look at this afternoon.
Mitchell had a couple of plays.
Yeah.
Was the ball finding him, or what was he doing?
Yeah, James Mitchell, he just keeps doing right, and I think trust factor, right? So the level of trust just continues to increase when he's in there with Andy or Bryce, whoever it is. So if you're doing right and the coverage says the ball goes there, he's making his plays. He had a couple offs early on in camp, couldn't quite come up with them, but he's been doing a solid job in the run game and the pass game.
You talked about the physicality. It looked like today was beyond thud, but short of live. What do you call that?
No, that's thud. I think in my mind, that's what thud should look like. I think the challenge for our defensive guys is, can you put your body in position where we all know that would have been a tackle, and because what happens, league wide is you get into these games and you're kind of whizzing by or just putting a shoulder or you're tagging off with two hands. Well, we don't really know if that was a tackle or not. That's not real football. So my challenge was to bring that physical nature where we know without a shadow of a doubt you were squared up and there's a great chance that you stop that play right there. And so I'll honor that with the whistle. If not, I kind of let the play extend because all the guys have to be ready to chase. Sometimes there's a big mosh pit and the ball squirts out outside or through the middle. So we have to be on track. We have to train ourselves not to just say, that was a tackle and relax. We have to stay engaged through the duration, all the way through the echo of the whistle.
With that said, what are you seeing from Lathan Ransom? Like he was pretty heavily involved in that.
Yeah, physical style of play. Exactly what we saw on film, what we're looking for. I love that. I love that he brings that to the DB room. That attitude, and he's really been into the details of the schemes and all that, and has been someone we can count on. So he's really given himself a chance to compete for the other starting spot at safety.
Dave, you've been part of Fan Fest before, but in
Yeah.
season with fans, what is your outlook going into tomorrow?
Yeah, I'm really excited to just get the extra energy that comes with a game-like environment. It feels to me like we used to have 4 preseason games. It feels like that first opportunity for us to suit up. We'll be in full pads. We'll get all of our special teams units a couple of full speed reps to evaluate it, but also just the gratification of making a play in here in the fans, making a tackle, making a nice catch or a big run, and the successes that come with that, and being able to feed off the energy of the fans.
Last one, Dave, you mentioned the last play, I think, earlier. What did you see on the last play and the way that unfolded?
On that interception, yeah, I had a window closed quickly. Shaw kind of, baited Bryce, I think, a little bit with some movement, came back and made a nice play, finished it right there. So, I kind of saw it from Bryce's point of view, and I could see T-Mac kind of coming into a void for a touchdown, and, Shaw kind of just squeezed back on it, passed the first route off and came back on the second one. So a really nice play by Shaw, to just have QB intentions on his mind.
He's having a really good camp, Todd, right?
Yeah, he's doing great. He's been versatile for us. He's playing the nickel spot. He's playing outside. He's kind of been all over the secondary, and somebody we can count on to speak loudly and be on the same page with his teammates. All right, thank you.